Welcome back, Biomonsters. Today we're going to be discussing lab safety. We're going to do something just a little bit different for this particular video. We're going to start out with a stop and jot. So here are your directions. List 7 important concepts about laboratory safety as well as professionalism that you'll see in the laboratory safety rap video that's about to appear. When you think that you have all the right answers, call your teacher over to check it for correctness.
Low res, triple R, the triple R sound. Wait, you gotta make sure that your lab is safe before you make a measurement about the space. Got your gloves pulled up, got your goggles on. Don't wanna be another lab experiment gone wrong. Go with the goggles, go with the gloves, go without food and spit out your gum. Go safe, and get into it. Go safe, scientists, no accident. You know the science lab can be a pretty dangerous place. Gotta wear safety goggles to protect your face. And just in case you still end up with stuff in your eye, you should know how to find the eye wash nearby. And as a matter of fact, know where the exits are too. Cause if a fire starts, you better know what to do. And you don't have to be a hero, try to break the mold. Be sure to follow all directions and just do as you're told. It reminds me of this time I was sitting in lab, trying to work through the experiment and give it a stab. When my partner started grabbing chemicals from the shell, started mixing up some liquids with unusual smells. Before he could stop, it began to bubble up. In a couple of seconds, he was in deep, deep trouble. So maybe mixing crazy potions didn't go as he planned. He didn't follow the directions and he burned his hand. Ow. Wait, you gotta make sure that your lab is safe before you make a measurement about the space. Got your gloves pulled up, got your goggles on. Don't wanna be another lab experiment gone wrong. Go with the goggles, go with the gloves, go without food and spit out your gum. Go safe, and get into it. Go safe, scientists, no accident. It's lab time and you're balling on top of things. Hypothesis made the column what you wanna see. But hold up, because it looks like you forgot something. Before you pour, let me know what's wrong with this scene. Your eyes are wide open to take in results. Or get blinded by all kinds of chemicals. They could splash up and mess up your complexion. So keep it hot, yo, and don those goggles. The same goes for your fingers, your hair and your toes. No flip-flop, your kick should have the tips closed. Your fingers should slip through the wrists of some gloves. No acid contamination on your palm. And your nose, you gotta steer clear of chemicals or they'll burn your nostrils. And you kinda want those. Protect it, don't smell it, just waft with me, waft with me. Don't need no medics, just waft with me, waft with me. Hands over the flask, your nose hanging back, keep your nostrils intact, just waft with me, waft with me. Wait, you gotta make sure that your lab is safe before you make a measurement about the space. Got your gloves pulled up, got your goggles on. Don't wanna be another lab experiment gone wrong. Go with the goggles, go with the gloves, go without food and spit out your gum. Go safe, and get into it. Go safe, scientists, no accident.
Alright, so let's start talking about our specific rules for being lab safe whenever we're doing laboratory together. First thing that we want you to be aware of is that accidents in lab as well as the home can be prevented. So whenever you're doing lab in class, we want you to think about 4 things. First, whenever you do something, stop and think. Then, use common sense. After you've done those 2 things, you want to consider what the consequences will be for what you do next. And then finally, if you're ever in doubt, ask the instructor questions. The next thing that we want to discuss is who's responsible for laboratory safety. This is an important question and we want to make sure that you understand the answer. When it comes to laboratory safety, the people that are responsible are your neighbors as well as yourself. Now, for our class, we're going to have 4 simple rules to remember when it comes to laboratory. And to help us remember them, we're going to just call them the Fantastic 4. So let's go ahead and look at rule number 1. Rule number 1 is pretty simple, and this is one of our most important rules. Don't put anything in any of your openings or any other person's openings while you're in lab. So what does this rule actually mean? Because that can entail a lot of stuff. Well, one of the things that we want to focus on is that during lab, we expect you to keep food, drink, gum, and all other lab materials away from your mouth and from any other openings or anybody else's openings in the space. So obviously food and drink as well as gum are not allowed during lab. We've talked about this before. And then obviously we don't want you to put or consume any lab materials either. The reason why we don't want you to consume any lab materials is because we want you to assume that everything in lab is toxic. Moving on to rule number 2. Rule number 2 is really simple. No horseplay. So do not horse around in the lab. So what do we mean by horseplay? Because we want to make sure that everybody's aware of what works in laboratory and what doesn't. First thing that we want to say is that it won't be tolerated. The consequences are outlined pretty clearly on the screen in front of you. First, if you're caught horseplaying during laboratory, you get a 0 for the lab. No questions asked. Secondly, it's an immediate referral to the office. We're very serious about horseplay because horseplay could lead to broken lab equipment. It could lead to injuring other students in lab as well as injuring yourself. Because horseplay is so dangerous in lab, we have a 0 tolerance policy when it comes to any sort of activity that's outside of the activities that we want to see outlined in a laboratory. So make sure that you're aware of that, because if we have to talk to you during lab, that talk is going to result in a 0 in the lab, it's going to result in a referral, and it can potentially result in you no longer participating in lab for the rest of the year. We have to be able to trust you. Our third rule is no unauthorized experiments. So what does this rule mean? Well, it's pretty simple. When we outline a specific experiment for you, that's the only thing that we want you and expect you to do during the lab period. So even though you might have extra lab materials or extra supplies that would lead you to believe that it might be a good idea to run another lab or do something else with those materials, we want you to fight that urge. All right, moving on to rule number 4. Rule number 4 is pretty simple. Don't be responsible for prolonging someone else's misery or pain. So basically with rule number 4, we want to be sure that if something does happen, because accidents do happen sometimes, that you know what to do to keep yourself safe and to keep your lab partner safe as well. So let's talk about this. First thing that we want you to know is that accidents will happen. At some point this year, someone will have an accident in laboratory. The easiest way to ensure that a minor problem does not become a big one is to report it as soon as it happens. So if an accident happens, no matter how small you think it is or how insignificant you think that accident is, we need you to tell your instructor straight away so that we can take care of it so it doesn't snowball into something bigger and badder. Now, if something were to happen, we need you to know where the safety equipment is. And we also need you to know how to use it. So looking on the screen, let's start with the left-hand side. On this side, this is also found on the left-hand side of the room. All right, so it's on the left side of the classroom. This is our eye wash station. Now, the eye wash station is really important because if something happens to get into your eye, because we might be working with chemicals that can be damaging to the eye, we need you to go to the eye wash station and immediately rinse out your eye. The next thing that you need to be aware of is the chemical shower. So the chemical shower is located in the same place because all of our safety equipment is housed in one apparatus on the left-hand side of the classroom. The last big ticket item that we need to talk about is broken glass. We're going to be using a lot of glassware this year in class. Most common accidents that happen in laboratory happen around broken glass. If anything breaks, the very first thing that we need you to do is to make sure that you report it to your teacher immediately. And after reporting it to your teacher, we want you to steer clear of touching any of that broken glass, and we want you to encourage your lab members to also steer clear of the broken glass. The only person who should be responsible for removing any of those broken shards of glass is the instructor, because oftentimes the accidents happen after the glass has been broken. It happens during cleanup. So at this point, you know our big 4 rules for laboratory, and you know what we expect in terms of behavior, and you also know what we expect if something were to happen in lab. So the very first thing that we need you to do on the bottom of your Cornell notes, we need you to write your summary. The directions for the summary are found on the left-hand side of the Cornell notes. After you write your summary, call your teacher over to check it and give you a signature, and once you do that, you're going to move on to the second activity, which is to sign your lab safety contract. Lastly, you're going to take the lab safety quiz. The lab safety quiz is an open note quiz that allows you to use your Cornell notes that you developed by watching this video, as well as the lab safety handout that you received when you walked into class. Thanks, guys, and good luck.